Maya sat on the edge of her worn-out couch, staring at her phone through blurry eyes. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The eviction notice on the coffee table seemed to mock her, the bold red letters screaming that she had exactly 48 hours to pack up and leave. 48 hours to figure out where she and her 3-year-old twins would sleep. She glanced at the bedroom door where Arya and Noah were finally asleep after hours of crying. They didn't understand why Mommy was so upset. They didn't understand that the only home they'd ever known was being taken away. The clock on the wall showed 11 p.m. Maya knew it was late, way too late to be asking anyone for help, but she was out of options. Her last paycheck from the diner had gone to buying groceries and diapers. The tips she'd saved were barely enough to fill her gas tank. She had $200 in her bank account and nowhere to go. Scrolling through her phone contacts, Maya looked for her old college roommate Jennifer. They hadn't talked in almost a year, not since Maya's life had fallen apart. But Jennifer had always been kind, always been understanding. Maybe, just maybe, she would let them crash on her couch for a week or two until Maya could figure things out. The problem was, Jennifer had changed her number recently. Maya remembered seeing her post about it on social media. Something about too many spam calls. Jennifer had sent her the new number in a message, and Maya had quickly saved it before her phone died that day. She'd labeled it J. Carter Emergency, so she'd remember it was important. What Maya didn't know, what she couldn't have possibly known, was that her phone had glitched during that save. The battery had died at the exact wrong moment, and when it restarted, her contacts had scrambled. The number she thought belonged to Jennifer actually belonged to someone completely different, someone whose business card she'd picked up 2 weeks ago at a coffee shop after accidentally bumping into him and spilling his espresso all over his expensive suit. She'd apologized profusely. He'd been surprisingly nice about it, and he'd handed her his card saying the coffee shop could charge the dry cleaning to his account. She'd never called. She'd just tucked the card into her phone case and forgotten about it. Until her phone crashed and somehow mixed everything up. Maya took a deep breath and started typing. Her pride screamed at her to stop, but desperation was louder. Jennifer, I know we haven't talked in forever, and I'm so sorry to bother you this late. But I'm in serious trouble. The twins and me were getting evicted. I lost my job 3 weeks ago, and I've been trying so hard to find something else, but nothing's working out. We have to be out by Wednesday. I have $200 and nowhere to go. Please, I'm begging you. I just need a place to stay until I can get back on my feet. I'll sleep on the floor, I'll do anything. Please. She read it over 3 times, hating how desperate she sounded, but knowing it was the truth. Then she closed her eyes and hit send before she could change her mind. Across the city, in a penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering skyline, Alexander Chen sat at his massive desk. Papers were spread everywhere. Contracts and merger documents that needed his attention before tomorrow's board meeting. His eyes burned from staring at numbers for the past 6 hours, but he couldn't stop now. Morrison Industries' biggest deal of the year depended on him getting every detail right. His engagement party was in 3 days. His fiancée Victoria had spent the last 6 months planning every minute detail, from the ice sculptures to the specific shade of champagne being served. Their wedding was scheduled for next month. A massive affair with over 500 guests. Victoria's family was old money, connected to everyone who mattered in the city. This marriage made sense on every level. It was strategic, beneficial for both their families' businesses, and Victoria was elegant, poised, exactly the kind of woman who should be on his arm at charity galas and board dinners. So why did he feel so empty every time he thought about it? His phone buzzed on the desk, pulling him from his thoughts. Alexander glanced at it, expecting another email from his assistant about tomorrow's schedule. Instead, it was a text from an unknown number. He should have ignored it, should have deleted it, but something made him tap on the message and read it. The words hit him harder than he expected. There was something raw about it, something real in a way that his world rarely was anymore. Everything in his life was polished, rehearsed, carefully constructed. This message was none of those things. It was just pure, desperate honesty. He stared at his phone for a long moment. The smart thing would be to ignore it. Delete it, go back to his contracts. But Alexander found his fingers moving across the screen, typing a response before his brain could stop him. I think you have the wrong number. But are you and your kids safe tonight? Do you have somewhere to sleep? Maya's phone buzzed in her hand and she nearly dropped it. Her heart pounded as she read the message. Wrong number? No. This couldn't be happening. She checked the contact again, her stomach sinking as she realized what must have happened. When her phone had crashed last month, everything had gotten mixed up. She'd sent her most desperate, vulnerable message to a complete stranger. Humiliation burned through her. She wanted to throw the phone across the room. But then she read the rest of the message. This stranger, whoever they were, was asking if she was safe. They weren't mocking her or ignoring her. They were showing concern. With shaking fingers, she typed back, "I'm so sorry. I'm so embarrassed. My phone messed up my contacts. Please forget you saw that message. We're okay." But they weren't okay. And somehow Alexander could tell from just those few words that she was lying. "Don't apologize. And you didn't answer my question. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight?" Maya bit her lip, tears streaming down her face now. Why was this stranger being kind to her? "We're still in our apartment until Wednesday. After that, I don't know. But it's not your problem. I'm really sorry for bothering you." Alexander leaned back in his chair, his merger documents completely forgotten. He thought about his enormous apartment with its empty guest rooms. He thought about his company's employee assistance programs that he'd approved, but never really understood. He thought about Victoria's disgusted face when she'd seen a homeless woman on the street last week, how she'd pulled him to the other side of the sidewalk like poverty was contagious. And then he thought about his own mother, who'd raised him alone after his father left, who'd worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over their heads, who'd sometimes cried quietly in the bathroom when she thought he was asleep, just like this woman was probably doing right now. He made a decision that would change everything. "What if I told you I might be able to help? Would you be willing to meet me tomorrow morning? Coffee shop on 5th Street, the one with the blue awning. 10 a.m. just to talk. No pressure, no strings attached. I might have a solution." Maya stared at the message for a full minute. Every instinct told her this was crazy. You don't meet strangers from wrong number texts. But every instinct had also told her to keep working herself to exhaustion at a job that didn't pay enough. And look where that had gotten her. Sometimes crazy was the only option left. She glanced at the eviction notice again, then at the bedroom door where her baby slept. "Okay, I'll be there." Neither of them slept much that night, both wondering what they'd just agreed to, neither knowing that a simple wrong number was about to change their lives forever. Maya arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, her hands gripping the stroller handle so tight her knuckles turned white. Arya and Noah were surprisingly calm this morning, probably sensing their mother's nervousness. She'd dressed them in their nicest outfits, the ones she usually saved for doctor's appointments. She wanted to look put together, like someone worth helping, even though her own clothes were wrinkled and her hair was pulled back in a messy bun because she hadn't had time to wash it. She ordered a small, black coffee with the last few dollars in her wallet and sat at a corner table, positioning the stroller where she could rock it gently. Her phone buzzed. "I'm here." Blue jacket by the window. Maya's eyes scanned the coffee shop and landed on a man who looked nothing like what she'd expected. He was younger than she'd imagined, maybe mid-30s, wearing an expensive-looking suit with a blue jacket draped over the chair. But what struck her most was his face. He looked tired, really tired, like he hadn't slept either. When their eyes met, he gave her a small, uncertain smile and gestured for her to come over. She pushed the stroller across the coffee shop, her heart hammering. This was insane. She was meeting a complete stranger because of a wrong number text. But what choice did she have, Maya? He asked softly as she approached. "Yes." "And you are?" "Alexander Chen." He stood up, pulling out a chair for her. "Please, sit. Can I get you something to eat? Have you had breakfast?" The kindness in his voice almost broke her. "I'm okay with coffee." He didn't push it, but she noticed him glance at the twins, then at her thin frame, and something flickered across his face. He sat down across from her and took a deep breath. "So, I'm going to be honest with you because I think we're past the point of pretending this isn't weird," Alexander said, a hint of a smile on his lips. "I spent all night trying to figure out why I couldn't just ignore your text. I have a company to run, a wedding to plan, and about 1,000,000 logical reasons why I should have deleted that message and moved on with my life." Maya felt her face flush with embarrassment. "Look, I'm sorry I dragged you into my mess. You don't owe me anything. Let me finish," he said gently. "The reason I couldn't ignore it is because my mom raised me alone. My dad left when I was 4. And I remember her crying in the bathroom at night, trying to muffle the sound so I wouldn't hear. I remember being evicted twice before I was 10. I remember what it feels like to be that desperate. Maya's throat tightened. She hadn't expected this. Alexander leaned forward. I run Morrison Industries. We have over 3,000 employees, and honestly, I barely know what half of them do anymore. But what I do know is that I need a new personal assistant. My last one quit 3 weeks ago to move to California with her husband, and I've been drowning ever since. The job pays $90,000 a year, full benefits, and I have a guest house on my property that's sitting empty. It's yours if you want it. You and your kids? Maya stared at him like he'd just spoken a foreign language. What? I know it sounds crazy, Alexander continued quickly, but I'm serious. I need help. You need a job and a place to stay. It could work. You don't know anything about me, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. I could be anyone. I could be dangerous, could you? Alexander raised an eyebrow. Because the woman who sent that text last night didn't sound dangerous. She sounded like someone who's working herself to the bone trying to take care of her kids. Someone who swallowed her pride to ask for help because her children needed her to. Noah started fussing in the stroller, and Maya automatically reached down to hand him his stuffed bunny. Alexander watched the gentle, practiced movement, the way she soothed her son without even thinking about it. What did you do before? For work? He asked. I was a waitress at Betty's Diner on 4th Street. Before that, I was studying to be a nurse, but I had to drop out when I got pregnant. The twins' father, She paused, the familiar ache settling in her chest. He didn't want to be a father, especially not to 2 kids at once. So I've been doing it alone since before they were born. Alexander nodded slowly. Can you use a computer? Manage a calendar? Answer emails and phone calls? Make travel arrangements? Yes, Maya said. I'm not great with the fancy stuff, but I'm a fast learner. I had to coordinate schedules for 3 different jobs at once. If I can juggle that, I can handle a calendar. Then you're hired. If you want the job. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Why are you doing this? Nobody just helps people like this. There has to be a catch. Alexander was quiet for a moment, his fingers drumming on the coffee cup. Honestly, maybe I'm being selfish. Maybe I need to do something good to remind myself that I'm not just a corporate machine. My wedding is next month to a woman who... He stopped himself. Let's just say my life feels very arranged right now. Very calculated. And your text reminded me that real life, messy and desperate and honest, still exists outside my bubble. Your fiancé, Maya said carefully. Will she be okay with this? With me and my kids living on your property? Alexander's jaw tightened slightly. Victoria and I have an understanding. She focuses on her social circle, I focus on my business. This is business. Something about the way he said it made Maya's heart sink a little. She recognized that tone, the same one her ex had used when he talked about her pregnancy like it was a business problem to solve rather than 2 human lives he'd helped create. But she didn't have the luxury of judging other people's relationships. She had 48 hours to find a home for her children. Okay, she said finally. I'll take the job, but I want to pay rent on the guest house, even if it's just a little bit each month. I'm not looking for charity. Alexander smiled, a real smile this time that reached his eyes. Deal, how about $200 a month? Maya almost laughed. That was insanely cheap for anything in this city, but she understood what he was doing, letting her keep her dignity. Deal. They spent the next hour going over details. Alexander explained that his estate was about 20 minutes outside the city, gated and secure with a pool and playground that Noah and Arya could use. The guest house had 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and was completely furnished. He'd arranged for movers to pack up her apartment tomorrow. She'd start work on Monday, which gave her a few days to settle in. I work a lot, Alexander warned her. Long hours, lots of travel, constant phone calls. It won't be easy. I've worked 3 jobs at once while taking care of twins, Maya said with a slight smile. I think I can handle it. When they stood to leave, Noah dropped his bunny and Alexander bent down to pick it up before Maya could. He handed it to the little boy, who grabbed it and gave him a gummy smile. Something soft passed over Alexander's face, something almost sad. How old are they? He asked. 3, they'll be 4 in January. Alexander nodded. They're lucky to have you fighting so hard for them. Maya felt tears prick her eyes again. I'm their mom. It's what you do. As she pushed the stroller back to her car, Maya kept waiting to wake up. This couldn't be real. People didn't just offer you a job in a home because of a wrong number text. But when she checked her phone and saw the address Alexander had sent her, along with a message that said, "See you tomorrow for the move," she realized it was actually happening. That night, while packing boxes in her apartment, Maya found the business card tucked in her old phone case. Alexander Chen, CEO, Morrison Industries. She'd spilled coffee on this man and he'd given her his card. Her phone had glitched and mixed up the contact. And now he was completely changing her life. She didn't believe in fate or destiny or any of that stuff. Life had been too hard for her to believe in magic. But sitting on her floor surrounded by moving boxes, watching her twins sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks, Maya thought maybe sometimes the universe did strange things. Sometimes a wrong number turned out to be exactly the right one. She just hoped she wasn't making the biggest mistake of her life. 3 months had passed since Maya moved into the guest house, and she still couldn't believe this was her life now. Every morning she woke up in a real bed, in a room with actual heating, and looked out the window at a garden instead of a brick wall. The twins had their own bedroom decorated with clouds painted on the ceiling. They had toys, clean clothes, and 3 meals a day. It felt like a dream she was terrified of waking up from. Working for Alexander was intense, but not in the way she'd expected. He worked constantly, barely sleeping, living on coffee and conference calls. But he was never mean, never condescending. When she made mistakes in the first few weeks, he'd patiently explain things instead of yelling. And slowly, Maya realized she was actually good at this job. Really good. She anticipated his needs before he asked, organized his chaotic schedule into something manageable, and even started catching errors in contracts that his legal team had missed. But the most unexpected part was watching Alexander with the twins. It started small. He'd wave at them through the window when he saw them playing in the garden. Then one evening, when Maya was working late to finish some urgent emails, he found Noah crying outside his office door, scared because he'd wandered from the guest house looking for his mom. Alexander had scooped him up without hesitation, bouncing him gently and making silly faces until Noah laughed instead of cried. When Maya rushed out to get her son, apologizing profusely, she found Alexander on the floor of his study with both twins, building a tower out of blocks while he took a conference call on speaker. After that, it became routine. The twins would visit his office during Maya's work hours. He taught Arya how to spin in circles without getting dizzy. He helped Noah name all his toy cars. He bought them books and read to them in the evenings when he got home early enough. Victoria hated it. She'd started coming by the estate more often, and Maya could feel the ice in her stare every time their paths crossed. Victoria never spoke to Maya directly, but she heard things. Whispered comments to Alexander about inappropriate boundaries and that woman and her children. Maya tried to stay invisible when Victoria visited, keeping the twins in the guest house and avoiding the main building entirely. But tonight was different. Tonight, Maya was working late in Alexander's home office while he was at his engagement party across town. She'd volunteered to stay behind and organize the files for Monday's merger meeting. The twins were asleep in the guest house with a baby monitor on the desk beside her. She was filing away contracts when she noticed a folder that had fallen behind the cabinet. Pulling it out, Maya saw it was labeled, "Medical Records Private." It wasn't sealed and a few papers had slipped out. She should have just put it back. Should have minded her own business. But one of the papers on the floor had a highlighted section that caught her eye. Genetic marker analysis, Chen, Alexander. Maya's hand started shaking before her brain fully registered what she was reading. The highlighted genetic markers, the medical terminology, the doctor's notes about management and treatment. She knew these words. She'd memorized them 6 months ago when the doctors had diagnosed Arya and Noah with the same rare genetic condition. The condition that required expensive medication and regular monitoring. The condition that had financially destroyed her because insurance barely covered any of it. The condition their father had used as an excuse to abandon them, saying he couldn't handle having broken kids. Alexander had the same genetic markers. The exact same ones. Maya sat down hard in his desk chair, her mind racing. Was this why he'd helped her? Had he somehow known about the twins' diagnosis? But how could he have? She'd never mentioned it to anyone at work. The medical bills went to her old address and she paid them through a payment plan she'd set up before moving here. She kept reading, her heart breaking with each page. Alexander had been diagnosed as a child. His mother had worked herself to exhaustion trying to afford his treatments. There were notes about his teenage years, about him teaching himself everything he could about the condition, about him eventually funding research into better treatments once he'd made his fortune. A soft sound made her look up. Alexander stood in the doorway, still in his tuxedo from the engagement party, his bow tie undone and hanging loose. He looked at the papers in her hands, and something in his expression told her he wasn't surprised to find her reading them. "You left early," Maya said quietly, setting the papers down carefully. The party was unbearable. Alexander walked into the room, loosening his collar. Victoria spent 2 hours introducing me to her friends like I was a prize she'd won. I couldn't take another minute of it. "Alexander, I'm sorry. I wasn't snooping, I swear. The folder fell and I just—" Maya's voice trailed off. He waved away her apology and sat on the edge of his desk. "It's okay. How much did you read?" "Enough to recognize it," Maya's voice cracked. "The twins have it too, the same genetic condition. That's why their father left. That's why I lost everything trying to pay for their treatments." Alexander's head snapped up, his eyes wide. "What?" "They were diagnosed 6 months before I lost my apartment. I was working 3 jobs, but the medical bills just kept coming. Insurance covered some of it, but not nearly enough. Their father, he took one look at the diagnosis and said he didn't sign up for this. Said he wouldn't waste his life on kids who would always be sick." "They're not sick," Alexander said, his voice suddenly fierce. "They have a condition that needs management, but they're not sick. They're perfect." Maya felt tears streaming down her face. "I know that. But try telling that to insurance companies. Try explaining that to a man who only saw them as broken." Alexander moved to the chair beside her, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "How are they doing? Are they on medication? Do they have a good doctor?" "They're okay right now. I have them on a payment plan for treatments, but I'm 3 months behind. I've been using part of my salary to catch up, but it's slow going." "Why didn't you tell me?" Alexander asked softly. "Tell you what? That I need even more help than you already gave me? That my kids have a genetic condition that's going to need expensive management their whole lives? You already saved us, Alexander. I couldn't ask for more." He stood up abruptly and walked to his desk, pulling out his laptop. His fingers flew over the keyboard for a few minutes while Maya watched, confused. Finally, he turned the screen toward her. "This is a trust fund," he said. "I'm setting up one for each of them. It'll cover all their medical expenses, treatments, medications, everything. For life." Maya shook her head, standing up. No, absolutely not. That's too much. I can't accept that. You're not accepting it, they are, and I'm not asking for permission." Alexander's voice was firm but not unkind. "I know what it's like to grow up worrying about whether your mom can afford your next doctor's appointment. I know what it's like to feel like a burden because you need medication that costs too much. No child should feel that way. Especially not Arya and Noah." "Why are you doing this?" Maya whispered. "The job, the house, and now this? Why do you care so much?" Alexander was quiet for a long moment, staring at the computer screen. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. "Because when I read your text that night, about being desperate and scared and not knowing where your kids would sleep, I saw my mother. I saw every night she cried thinking I was asleep. I saw every time she skipped meals so I could eat. And I thought, what's the point of having all this money, all this success, if I can't help someone who's going through exactly what we went through?" He turned to look at her, and Maya saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. "And because somewhere along the way, you and those 2 incredible kids stopped being a charity case and became the best part of my day. When I'm in a meeting that's dragging on forever, I think about Noah showing me his new car collection. When I'm stressed about the merger, I remember Arya's dance performances in my study. You've brought something into my life that I didn't even know was missing." Maya couldn't speak. The air between them felt charged, heavy with something neither of them could name. "I'm getting married in 4 weeks, Alexander said. But he didn't sound happy about it. To a woman who doesn't want children, who sees people like us, people with conditions that need management, as flawed, as less than, then why marry her? The question escaped before Maya could stop it. Alexander laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "Because it makes sense on paper. Because our families have been planning it for years. Because I'm 35 years old and I thought I knew what I wanted from life." He paused. "And then you sent me that text message and everything got complicated." Maya knew she should step back, should remember the boundaries between employer and employee, should remember that he was engaged to someone else. But something had shifted tonight, something neither of them could take back. "Alexander," she said carefully, "those kids in there, they think you hung the moon. They ask for you when you're gone. They save their best drawings to show you. Whatever this is between us, whatever happens, please don't break their hearts. I won't," he promised, and the intensity in his voice made her believe him. "I swear to you I won't." Neither of them knew that Victoria's car was parked at the end of the long driveway, that she'd followed Alexander home from the party. Neither of them knew she'd seen the lights on in the office and had walked close, enough to hear everything through the open window. And neither of them knew that the storm that was coming would force them both to make impossible choices. Victoria didn't wait until morning. She walked straight through the front door of Alexander's estate like she owned it, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Maya heard her coming and instinctively stood up from the desk chair, her heart pounding. Alexander turned toward the office door just as Victoria appeared, her face a mask of cold fury. "So this is what you do when I'm not around?" Victoria's voice was ice. "Playing house with the help in her charity cases." "Victoria, what are you doing here?" Alexander's voice was measured, careful. "I followed you. Thank God I did, or I never would have known what was really going on." Victoria's eyes locked on Maya. "You. Get out. I need to speak with my fiancé alone." Maya grabbed the baby monitor and moved toward the door, but Alexander's voice stopped her. "Stay, please." Victoria's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Excuse me? You're choosing her over me right now?" "I'm not choosing anyone," Alexander said, but even Maya could hear how hollow that sounded. "But Maya works for me. This is her workplace. You don't get to order her around." "Her workplace?" Victoria's voice rose. "She lives here, Alexander. She and her kids have completely taken over your life. Do you think I haven't noticed? You leave meetings early to go home. You skip social events. You're always on your phone checking if they need something. And now I find out you're setting up trust funds for her children." Maya felt sick. "I should go. This is between you two." "No, stay," Alexander repeated more firmly this time. He turned to Victoria. "You're right. I have been leaving early. I have been checking in more. Because for the first time in years, I actually want to go home. I want to see Arya show me her latest dance. I want to help Noah build his block towers. I want to talk to Maya about something other than profit margins and stock prices. They're not your children." Victoria's composure cracked. "They're hers. Some random woman who sent you a text message by mistake. And now you're what? Playing daddy to her kids because you feel guilty about your own childhood?" Alexander's jaw tightened. "Don't talk about them like that." "Why not? It's the truth. You've been looking for some noble cause to make yourself feel better. And she showed up at exactly the right moment with a sob story and 2 cute kids. It's pathetic, Alexander." Maya had heard enough. "You know what? You're right about one thing. I did show up with a sob story. I was desperate and scared and I had nowhere to go. And yes, Alexander helped me when he didn't have to. But those kids you're talking about, they're not charity cases. They're people. They're funny and smart, and they deserve better than to be talked about like they're problems to solve." Victoria turned her cold gaze on Maya. "How much? What? How much money will it take for you to leave? Pack up your kids and disappear from Alexander's life? Name your price." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. This was exactly what her ex had done. Tried to throw money at her to make his children disappear, to make the inconvenience go away. "There's no amount of money," Maya said quietly, her voice shaking. "Because I'm not leaving for you. If I leave, it'll be because it's the right thing for my kids." "Then think about your kids." Victoria moved closer, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Think about what happens when this all falls apart. When Alexander wakes up and realizes he's been playing pretend. When he gets bored of the fantasy and you're out of a job and a home again. Where will you go then?" Maya felt tears burning her eyes because Victoria was voicing every fear she'd had for the past 3 months. Every night she lay awake wondering when this would end. When Alexander would realize he'd made a mistake. When she'd be back to square one. Except this time it would hurt so much more because Arya and Noah had gotten attached. Because she had gotten attached. That's enough. Alexander's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "Victoria, I think you should leave." "Are you serious right now?" Victoria stared at him. "Our wedding is in 4 weeks. 4 weeks, Alexander. The invitations are sent, the venue is booked. Both our families are flying in from all over the world. And you're asking me to leave because I'm pointing out that you're making a fool of yourself? I'm asking you to leave because you just tried to bribe Maya into abandoning her children. Because you called two innocent kids charity cases. Because you've shown me exactly who you are and I don't like what I see. Victoria's face went pale, then red. If I walk out that door, I'm not coming back. The wedding is off. Everything we planned, everything our families built together, it's done. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Maya watched emotions flicker across his face, fear, doubt, resolution. Finally, he spoke and his voice was steady. Then I guess the wedding is off. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria stood frozen, clearly not expecting him to actually say it. Then she grabbed her purse and turned toward the door. But before she left, she looked back at Maya with something dark in her eyes. You think you've won something here? Victoria said softly. But you've just made a very powerful enemy. I have friends everywhere in this city. One word from me and you'll never work again. Neither will he. She glanced at Alexander. I'll destroy both of you for this. Then she was gone, the front door slamming so hard the windows rattled. Maya and Alexander stood in the office, the weight of what just happened settling over them like a heavy blanket. Oh, God, Maya whispered. What did we just do? Alexander ran his hands through his hair, looking suddenly exhausted. I just called off my wedding. My family is going to lose their minds. The board is going to panic. Victoria's father is one of our biggest investors. He laughed, but it sounded slightly unhinged. This is going to be a disaster. Maya felt panic rising in her chest. This is my fault. I should leave. If I'm gone, maybe you can fix this. No. Alexander's voice was sharp. Don't even think that. This isn't your fault. This is me finally admitting that I was about to marry someone who sees children as inconveniences and people who need help as beneath her. This is me realizing I was choosing a life that looked good on paper but felt empty in reality. But your company, your family, everything you've built will survive or it won't, Alexander said. But I can't marry someone who would try to pay you to disappear. Who would call Arya and Noah charity cases? Who would threaten to destroy you because I chose to help you? Maya sank back into the chair, her legs suddenly weak. What happens now? Now? Alexander looked out the window at the dark sky. Now I call my lawyer and start damage control. I contact the venue and the vendors. I prepare for my mother to have about 15 different heart attacks. He turned back to Maya. And you stay here. You and the twins stay here where you're safe. Victoria made threats and she's the type of person who follows through on them. Alexander, I can't ask you to blow up your entire life for us. You're not asking. I'm choosing. He moved closer to her, and Maya could see the fear and determination warring in his eyes. These past 3 months have been the first time in my adult life that I've actually been happy. Really, genuinely happy. I come home and there's laughter. There's life. There are sticky handprints on my office window and crayon drawings on my desk and terrible knock-knock jokes at dinner. And yes, it's chaotic and messy and nothing like the life I thought I wanted. But it's real. What if Victoria is right? Maya's voice was barely a whisper. What if you wake up one day and realize this was all just some fantasy? What if you regret this? Alexander knelt down in front of her chair so they were eye level. Then I'll deal with that when it comes. But right now, in this moment, I know that marrying Victoria would be the biggest mistake of my life. I know that walking away from you and those kids would haunt me forever. Is that enough? Maya wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly, but life had taught her to be careful with hope. Arya has a dance recital next Tuesday, she said quietly. She made me promise to ask if you could come. She wants to show you the spin move you taught her. Something soft and vulnerable crossed Alexander's face. I'll be there. Front row. Even with everything that's about to fall apart. The media circus, your family freaking out, the board meetings. Especially then, Alexander said. Because if I'm going to blow up my life, I might as well do it for something that matters. Neither of them moved for a long moment, the space between them charged with everything they couldn't quite say. Finally, Maya stood up. I should go check on the twins. It's late. Alexander stood too, stepping back to give her space. Maya! She turned at the door. Yeah, thank you. For being honest with Victoria. For standing up for your kids. For being brave. Maya smiled sadly. I don't feel very brave right now. I feel terrified. That's usually when the bravest things happen, Alexander said. As Maya walked back to the guest house through the dark garden, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You made a mistake tonight. I always get what I want, and I want both of you gone. Maya's hands started shaking. She looked back at the main house, at the light still on in Alexander's office, and wondered if they'd just started something neither of them knew how to finish. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Victoria kept her promise about making their lives difficult. Tabloid photographers camped outside Alexander's estate. Headlines screamed about the billionaire CEO who dumped his socialite fiancée for his assistant. The photos they managed to get made everything look worse than it was. Maya pushing the stroller to the car. Alexander walking beside her carrying Arya. Normal, innocent moments twisted into scandalous stories. The board called emergency meetings. Alexander's mother flew in from Boston and spent 3 hours yelling at him in his office. Maya could hear her voice through the walls, angry and disappointed. Alexander's father, who'd left when he was young, suddenly called wanting to discuss this situation. Even some of Alexander's oldest friends stopped returning his calls. Maya tried to leave twice. The first time, she got as far as packing 3 boxes before Alexander found her. He didn't argue or plead. He just sat on the floor of the guest house and asked her where she planned to go. When she couldn't answer, he quietly started unpacking the boxes. The second time, Maya made it to her car with both kids buckled in. But Noah asked why they were leaving Bash, and the way his little voice broke saying the nickname they'd given Alexander made her pull back into the driveway. She sat there crying for 20 minutes before taking them back inside. Victoria's lawyers were ruthless. They went after Alexander's company, trying to pull investments through her family's connections. 3 major clients backed out of deals, spooked by the scandal. The stock price dropped. Business magazines ran articles questioning Alexander's judgment and leadership. But the worst part was watching what it did to Alexander. He tried to hide it, tried to stay strong, but Maya saw the exhaustion in his eyes. The way he'd stare at his laptop screen at midnight, trying to salvage deals. The phone calls with disappointed investors. The weight of every consequence settling on his shoulders. "You should fix this," Maya told him one night when she found him in his office at 2 a.m. "Call Victoria. Tell her it was a mistake. Save your company." Alexander looked at her like she'd suggested he cut off his own arm. "I'm not doing that. Why not? Look at what this is costing you. Your reputation, your business, your relationships with your family, all because you helped some random woman who texted you by mistake." "Stop calling yourself that," Alexander said, his voice rough with exhaustion. "You're not random. You're Maya. You're the person who reorganized my entire filing system in a week, who makes me actually eat lunch instead of working through it, who reminds me that there's more to life than profit margins and stock prices." "But at what cost?" Maya whispered. "How many more hits can your company take? How much more can you lose before you start to resent us?" Alexander stood up and walked around his desk to stand in front of her. "Do you want to know what I'd be doing right now if I'd married Victoria? I'd be at some charity gala making small talk with people I don't like. I'd come home to an empty house because she'd be at her club or her spa or shopping with her friends. We'd have separate bedrooms because she thinks that's more civilized, and I'd be completely, utterly alone." He ran a hand through his already messy hair. "Instead, tonight I had dinner with 3 people who actually wanted to talk to me. Noah told me about the bug he found in the garden. Arya made me try her new dance routine 5 times. You and I argued about whether the Peterson contract needed revision. And yeah, it's chaos and my life is falling apart on paper, but I'd rather have this than whatever that other life was supposed to be." Maya felt tears streaming down her face. "I'm scared, Alexander. Victoria's not done. She's going to keep coming after us, and your family hates me. Your mother called me a gold digger to my face yesterday." "I know, I heard. And I told her if she ever speaks to you like that again, she's not welcome in my home." Alexander's voice softened. "I'm scared too. I'm terrified that I'm going to lose everything I've built. But I'm more terrified of losing you." The words hung in the air between them, finally spoken out loud. Maya had felt it growing for months now. This thing between them that was so much more than employer and employee, so much bigger than gratitude or convenience. "The twins," Maya started, but Alexander interrupted her. "I love them. I know I'm not their father, and I know I have no right to feel this way after only a few months, but I love those kids like they're mine. When Noah shows me his toys, when Arya asks me to watch her dance, when they both run to the door when I get home from work, I feel something I never thought I'd feel, like I'm part of something real." "And me?" Maya asked, barely breathing. Alexander stepped closer. "You're the reason I check my phone constantly. You're why I actually want to come home." You're why I've been dreading my wedding for months even before I admitted it to myself. He paused, searching for the right words. You're home, Maya. You and those kids. You're what home feels like. Maya closed the distance between them, and when she kissed him, it felt like finally admitting something they'd both known for a long time. When they pulled apart, she was laughing and crying at the same time. Your timing is terrible, she said. In the middle of all this chaos, losing clients, your family hating me, photographers following us everywhere. I've always been bad at timing, Alexander smiled. And for the first time in 2 weeks, he looked genuinely happy. But I'm done pretending this is just about giving you a job. I'm done acting like you're just my assistant and those kids are just living in my guest house. This is what I want. You're what I want. The next morning, Alexander called a press conference. Maya watched from her laptop as he stood in front of cameras and reporters, looking tired but determined. I'm not going to apologize for calling off my wedding, he said clearly. Victoria Ashford is a remarkable woman, but we weren't right for each other. More importantly, I'm not going to apologize for helping someone who needed it. Maya Rodriguez sent me a text message by mistake 6 months ago. She was desperate, scared, and about to be homeless with 2 young children. I had the means to help, so I did. That's not a scandal. That's called being a decent human being. He paused, looking directly at the camera. Yes, our relationship has grown beyond employer and employee. Yes, I care deeply about her and her children. And yes, I understand that some people will see this as poor judgment or inappropriate, but I've spent my entire adult life making decisions based on what looked good on paper, what made business sense, what other people expected of me. For once, I'm making a decision based on what actually makes me happy. If that costs me clients or investors, so be it. I'll rebuild. The press conference exploded with questions, but Alexander just walked away from the podium. When he got home an hour later, Maya was waiting on the front steps with both kids. That was either really brave or really stupid, she said. Probably both, Alexander admitted. He scooped up Arya, who'd run to him with her arms out. Noah grabbed his leg, hugging tight. Bash, you're on TV, Arya announced proudly. Mommy showed us. Was I good? Alexander asked seriously. You forgot to smile, Noah said. Mommy says you should smile more. Alexander laughed, the sound genuine and light. He looked at Maya over Arya's head. Your mommy's right about a lot of things. The recovery was slow. Some clients came back, impressed by Alexander's honesty. Others stayed away. His mother eventually came around after spending an afternoon with the twins, though she still made pointed comments about the situation. His company took a hit, but it survived. Victoria eventually moved to London, and the tabloids found new scandals to obsess over. 6 months later, on a regular Tuesday afternoon, Alexander came home early to find Maya in the garden with the twins. Arya was teaching Noah her latest dance moves while Maya laughed at their attempts. The golden afternoon light made everything look like a painting, and Alexander just stood there watching, his heart so full it ached. Maya noticed him and smiled. You're home early. Everything okay? Everything's perfect, Alexander said, pulling a small box from his pocket. He'd been carrying it for weeks, waiting for the right moment. But watching his family, messy and chaotic and real, he realized there would never be a perfect moment. There was just this, just them, just now. Maya, he started, and she saw the box and her eyes went wide. Alexander, what are you doing? Something I should have done months ago. He knelt down and both twins stopped dancing to stare. I know this has been the messiest, most complicated situation. I know we did everything backwards and wrong, but I also know that I want to keep doing everything wrong with you for the rest of my life. Will you marry me? Maya was crying again, but she was also laughing. You're proposing in the garden while the kids are covered in dirt and I haven't brushed my hair today? See, wrong timing again, Alexander grinned. So what do you say? Yes, Maya said, dropping to her knees in front of him. Yes, of course, yes, Arya squealed and jumped on them both. Noah wanted to see the ring. They all ended up in a pile on the grass, laughing and crying and completely happy. That night, after the kids were asleep, Maya and Alexander sat on the porch of what was no longer the guest house but just their house. She looked at the ring on her finger, still not quite believing any of this was real. Do you ever think about that night? She asked. When I sent you that text by mistake? Every day, Alexander said, pulling her closer. Best wrong number I ever got. My phone crashed and scrambled all my contacts. Just a random glitch. Or maybe it wasn't random at all, Alexander suggested. Maya smiled. You don't believe in fate. I didn't, he corrected. But then a desperate text from a wrong number changed my entire life. Now I'm not so sure what I believe. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. Inside, 2 kids slept peacefully, their medical bills paid, their future secure, their family complete. And somewhere in the universe, a wrong number had turned into the rightest thing either of them had ever found.